You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
The power sweep actually is the lead play in our offense. We ask our YN or a tight end to open up somewhere between 6 feet and 9 feet, get an isolation with the linebacker. Tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, to drive down on the first man to his inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here. Try to run this play in the alley.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Text us 865-658-5824. Joined alongside Tim, live in Green Bay. A little surprise pod for you, ladies and gentlemen. Tim, you had to break out the Super Bowl jersey there on them, didn't you, bro?
Man, we're talking linebackers today, right? Had to bust out the Clay Matthews, dust it off, put it out of the back of the closet,
Yeah. I want to say one of the most underappreciated Packers in Green Bay history, but at the same time, man, he was a fan favorite. So maybe that is misstating that. He was just one of my favorite players to watch, man.
One of my favorite linebackers for sure.
Yeah.
Play inside, play outside, just versatile, ferocious.
Yeah. Overachiever his entire life, man. Came into USC undersized. I want to say he weighed like 180 pounds or something. Made it on the special teams, bulked up, and obviously the rest is history. Just like I said,
such a great career with that jacked up hamstring too for so many years, and just able to still get it done, man. So salute to one of the greats, man. Clay Matthews for sure.
I think my favorite Clay Matthews play is definitely the spill it, pick it, spill it, fumble, forced fumble in that Super Bowl. But if you had to say what's your second favorite, it's probably when he ran down Adrian Peterson, ripped the ball out of his hands, and took it back for 6. Like it didn't even touch the ground. He's, give me that ball, kid. What are you doing?
Yep, for sure. That was one of the things too, man, that I always loved about him is he was so big, so strong, but just so freaking athletic. It was just unreal just watching him play, man.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to the chat here. CJN says, good morning, PTA posse. And he said, nice to finally catch a show live. Hey, glad you made it, CGN. Glad to see you in here, buddy. Ayo Chaos. There you go. What's up, buddy? He said, I need to know what y'all think about this new swing tackle. We hit on it last night on PTA Live. He's a guy that coming out of college, I think he was the 22nd pick. We looked him up on the consensus big board. I think he finished right before the draft. He was 19th on the consensus big board in 2019. But, not going to get in here and sugarcoat it. He has underperformed immensely at the NFL level. Now, change of scenery, maybe that fixes things. I think what it tells you is his market value was at the lowest point it's ever been, right? In his entire career, and him being, of course, I already deleted it. What was his name? Do you even remember his name, Tim? It's already.
Oh my gosh.
I literally I erased the screen grab.
Andre Dillard.
Andre Dillard. So he has not performed well. He played for the Eagles, played for the Titans. Market absolutely in the tank. So the Packers pick him up. I guarantee you they went back, and they do this in free agency. We kind of mention it as free agency opens up every year, that the way these teams approach this, they've got guys scouting and grading players throughout the entire year, but they also immediately go back to their draft board from the year that person came out and go, okay, what grade did we have on him? All right, what did the scouting report show? Are there any red flags? All right, what were his strengths, his weaknesses? Then you go look at the tape of him at another location, another team, and go, okay, well, they didn't utilize him right. Maybe they're looking at it that way. Maybe they're looking at it like, hey, maybe a change of scenery. You know, I don't think he's going to live up to a first-round talent at this point in his career, being Dillard. But I think there is a chance that he could kind of raise his floor a touch by change of scenery. So right now, I've got to say backup swing tackle, maybe even a camp cut, depending on, how he comes out and impresses the coaches. But maybe he can catch some fire too, man. Maybe Coach Buckus will get a hold of him and make him into an excellent pass blocker, which seems to be what he does. The problem is the run blocking has been an issue in Green Bay, right? So maybe he'll fit, man. I don't know, Tim. What do you think? You got some high hopes for Andre Dillard?
Tempered expectations. Well, kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing. And, we're what, almost 3 years into the Caleb Jones project. We talked about him last night. I think he might be the first swing tackle, a guy who could probably play left and right tackle. We'll see. So I think they want to see what Big Caleb's got going into this year. And then obviously Mr. What is his name again? Andre Dillard. Mr. Dillard. We'll see. Hopefully we'll remember his name. And maybe he will play his way onto this team. But time will tell. I'm with you, Clayton. For all we know, he might not make it out of camp. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure, man. So some other news that broke here. I believe we had a new top 30 visit, if I seen correctly. And let me drop that comment down there. Good to see you in here, Ayo Chaos. Actually, let me finish this chat up here real quick. Boz says he caused a Super Bowl fumble that helped us ice that game. Talking about Clay Matthews, just an absolute great, no doubt about that, man. What up, Caldwell Corner? Good to see you, buddy. Doug in the house. We got Josh in here. Appreciate y'all swinging through on this random pod that we're putting out. Obviously, it's a little rainy here today, so we said, let's get in here and talk a little ball. So we had a new top 30 visit, to the best of my knowledge. His name is Del Pettis out of Troy. He's a safety, okay? So I went ahead. He was not on my board, so I went ahead and worked him in. Let me see if I can locate him real quick, and I'll tell you guys where he falls on my board. He sits in the 239 spot right now, okay? So PFF graded out somewhere in the 220s as far as safeties go in 2022. In 2023, he was the 243rd graded safety, according to PFF in college. The consensus big board in January had him at 415. And as far as his combine numbers, things like that, he scored, I think, a 6 on the RAS. So not horrible, but obviously not going to put you on a crazy radar as far as across the league. But at that 239 spot, you never know. He might be a 6th or a 7th round pick. It may be one of those mini targets that we know Goody likes to kind of try to sign as undrafted free agents. So I believe that visit was in the last couple of days, or at least it was scheduled, because I didn't see him on the list before, and I noticed he just kind of popped up. So I thought we would hit on that real quick. But obviously, Tim, we're here to talk linebackers, man. As the draft gets closer, I'm fine-tuning my horizontal board and getting last-second info in from people that I trust. And I've talked about this over and over and over. I love Greg Cosell and how he breaks down the tape, how he talks about deployment. He talks about strengths and weaknesses. He talks about, hey, this guy might be really high on one team's board. He might be really low on another, depending on their build and the structure of their game and how they like to approach things. So it's important to kind of hit on all those aspects. So we're going to hear from Greg Cosell here in a second, but just want to give a quick little promo here to anyone who wants to join us on draft day. We are going to be live for all 7 rounds. That's the goal, is to have a live watch party with the NFL draft this year. So obviously round 1 will be live for the entirety of it. And you can find us right here on YouTube, on X, as well as Rumble. And make sure you guys are subbed to the channel, all that good stuff. It's going to be an absolute blast that night too. In round 1, we're going to be giving away an autographed Paul Hornung jersey. Okay, this very jersey right here got the accolades sewn on it as well. Really cool piece of memorabilia. I've actually got me one back here, so I picked up an extra to give away to some of our Patreon members. So the way that you can enter yourself into that contest is for our paid Patreon members, the people who are supporting the show, just a way for us to give back to them. So we're going to put everybody's name on a wheel, spin it during round 1 of the draft, and give that autographed jersey away to whoever it lands on. So we love the giveaways here. Love to do it live too. Adds a little more suspense to the situation there. So if you guys are interested in that, you can find the link to our Patreon group in the YouTube video description here as well. If you're watching on X, appreciate you tuning in, making us a part of your morning there. You can click on my profile on X and you'll see the YouTube link where they'll send you to the YouTube channel where you can kind of communicate a little bit easier in that regard. So just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who's interested. But Tim, let's get into linebacker talk, man. We've hit on it all draft season, and as draft season is kind of sad, man. It's starting to come to a close here. It's all this build up, and in 3 days we're going to look back and go, dang, it's over. All right, there you go. So
yeah, but then we get to that fun part where we get to break down all of our draft picks and do a little chalk talks and figure out who we think is going to play where and find out how wrong we all are after camp's over
exactly
with.
Right. Exactly. And one thing you'll notice about our show here, we're not out to go, hey man, let's try to be the smartest people in the room. We try to come up with a bunch of different exercises to gather information on these prospects. So we all come out a lot more educated on this draft class. Now, when we talk linebackers, I've done some adjusting on my board and fine tuning it. The first linebacker on my board comes in the 48 spot, and it's linebacker Junior Colson. Okay. Then you've got in the 54 spot, linebacker Peyton Wilson out of NC State. And then Cedric Gray in the 64 spot out of North Carolina. And then I have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at 75. There's people going, where's Edgerrin Cooper, Clayton? He is in the 78 spot. So I think I am the only person on the face of earth that doesn't have Edgerrin Cooper in the top 3 linebacker spots, right? And
I'm
you're going
there too, though.
Yeah. Are you really? So
yeah, I've got Wallace, Wilson, Gray, and Colson over him.
And the thing on Edgerrin Cooper is like, and you're going to hear Greg Cosell talk about it here in a second, the ceiling is just, I mean, it's through the roof. Like you couldn't get a higher ceiling for a linebacker, especially one that's projected to be a potential 2nd to 3rd round, draft pick. But I'm not a big fan of that, man. I want those guys that's got the higher floor I would rather have a higher floor, lower ceiling than a higher ceiling, lower floor, if that makes sense. And you kind of see that with Quay, and we hope he develops under Jeff Hafley. We hope he takes a step forward. But if there's any of these linebackers that you look up and go, yep, that's probably Goody's guy, Edgerrin Cooper is the one that comes to mind the most because the RAS is through the roof, right? He's got just crazy upside. You're going to hear Greg Cosell say that he thinks he's the best linebacker in the draft, but then he cuts himself off and says he just might not be a starter right away. It's like, wait a minute, what? So he's the best linebacker. That's what he's talking about. The NFL level, when prospects come out, it's about projecting those picks. Like what do you think you could turn them into rather than how good are they now, right? So let's waste no more time. Let's just get right into it. I'm going to play this audio. Guys, this is going to be about 8 or 9 minutes long, and we're going to stop it after each prospect. They hit on about 3 different linebackers. And this comes from one of my favorite podcasters, one of my favorite podcasts in the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Greg Cosell is a guest on there all the time. So make sure you go give them a like, a follow, a share, all that stuff. They just do phenomenal work. Again, this is Greg Cosell on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. They're going to talk a little linebacker. We'll pause it after each prospect. Here we go.
Let's dive into the linebackers. I'm not even going to ask you the question about position importance. We talk about it every year. I'm not doing it. You know, if you want to hear that, go back to last year and the year before that. All of our shows are archived, you know, on podcast, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. But let's talk about off the ball linebackers. And, you know, it's not an important position until you're getting smoked at that position. Then it's an important position.
You've been in that spot, Tim. I know I have.
Yeah, buddy.
It's not that important. You shouldn't take one that high, and then you're getting, you're having Raheem Mostert run down your throat for 200 yards. You're like, man, I sure wish we had us a linebacker.
Well, no position is important until you don't have anybody good playing the position.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So some of the guys that you hear a lot about, Junior Colson from Michigan, Peyton Wilson, NC State, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Clemson. Was there a guy that, I always like to ask you this, Greg, was there a guy that jumped out to you that you really liked and really thought was impressive?
Again, I know I say this every week, but they're different. I mean, you're talking about Wilson at 6'4 plus. You're talking about Colson, who's built perfectly for an off-the-ball stack backer at 6'2", 238. You're talking about Trotter, who's 6 feet. And my guess is there'll be some teams, because of the critical factors element, that's what teams do. They assign critical factors to each position, and they don't usually draft exceptions. But Jeremiah Trotter's tape is really good. He was a fun watch. He's such a smart, savvy, aware player, sees things immediately. He's one of those guys, the term we always use is key and diagnose. He sees it. He attacks. He's a really good blitzer. He's just 6 feet, 228. That's going to be seen as small. Some teams will say, you know what? Not for me. But his tape is really good. And we know who his dad is. I remember his dad sitting with me here in my office at NFL Films watching tape when he retired. And I guarantee he's imparted a lot of wisdom to his son. And then you have Peyton Wilson.
All right, so let's stop right there. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. If he had been 6'2", Tim, I mean, there would have been no negatives, right? Like, he basically said, this dude's a perfect prospect at the linebacker position. He's just not big enough, right?
Yep.
So that's what we're talking about. It's like, for me, that's a hard pill to swallow, because I never look up on game day and go, God, that guy was just an inch taller. But I do find myself going, why are we so late to the football? Why are we having trouble shedding blocks? Why are we allowing a route concept, a route combination develop right before our eyes and not reacting, knowing when they're in a twin set or a trip set or a tray gun, this is what they like to do the large majority of the time. So he's one of those read and diagnose guys. There's no doubt about that. Now, when we look at him again on the vertical board here, and I'll try to get it to where it's zoomed in a little bit better for you guys and gals. If you scroll down here, we're going to find our boy, or up, I'm sorry. Where's he at? Let me find him real quick. There's Junior Colson. Where's our boy Jeremiah Trotter? So you'll see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in the 75 spot. PFF grade 2022, 15th best linebacker. 2023, 21st best linebacker. Consensus big board in January had him at 54. So after the season ended, why did he drop? Like, he played great football and he dropped, 22 spots, right? So how does that happen? We've talked about it. We're not going to, beat a dead horse here. The 33rd team has him in the 138 spot. What I love about the 33rd team is their website, their database, their team, if you will, is a whole bunch of former coaches and executives. So they're looking at it like, what kind of grade can we put on a guy who's not even 6 foot tall?
He dropped again on 33rd team.
So where's he at now?
173 overall.
So he dropped another 40 spots. Now, keep in mind, the tape hasn't changed. So what's causing him to drop? Projection, right? They're kind of projecting him like, okay, he's not big enough to play inside linebacker at the NFL level, at least, to a certain level. I'm keeping him right where he's at, man. I'm telling you, if he drops even lower and we're able to nab him as a will backer like in the 90s, oh my goodness, dude. I would lose my mind. So they had him in the 138 spot before, right? Obviously didn't participate as far as combine, things like that. And Greg Cosell really, really liked Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So again, he comes in the 76 spot. Now, I want to show you guys. Actually, I'll wait to the end to show my horizontal board. I was going to show my horizontal board. We'll wait to the end, though, because I definitely want you guys to see how the horizontal board will speak to you from a positional standpoint. It's a really, really cool exercise we're going to do there. But let's get back to Ross Tucker. First of all, Tim, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., is that not pretty much what we've said all year long? Like, that's what we came away with. Like, there was not one negative comment from Greg Cosell about Trotter, right?
Right, other than the size, right? And that's like the running narrative with him. And it's like, well, I guess we'll know when we see him out there, with NFL players going out there and playing, hopefully it's in a Packer uniform.
Right.
We'll see. But, we've seen that in multiple positions before. I guess you're a little more concerned when it comes to things like, linebacker or D-line, for example, about guys being undersized. Probably a little bit more of a concern than maybe a corner or even a safety or something. So, but time will tell with Trotter Jr. I think he's the real deal.
Yeah. And, it's like when you kind of look at it and you go, okay, obviously the size is the issue here. That's what's causing him to drop. How many times have we watched the Packers play and feel like people are playing, they're late to the ball. They're not diagnosing quick enough. I call it playing with your eyes. It's called eye speed. I'll tell you someone else in this draft that's very similar is Tyler Nubin. You turn on the tape and you see he's a half a step in the right direction before everyone else. Yep. Well, his combine numbers weren't great. Okay, I got you. But that half a step, it doesn't matter how fast you are, in my opinion. If you're going to be a half a step to a full step late because it's taking you a minute to kind of compute what's going on, then doesn't that make you kind of both even?
Kind of cancels it out, yeah. I mean, that jumped off the tape with Xavier McKinney for sure. I mean, the way he would just see it well before anybody else was. And we've seen him, recover.
We all have smartphones, and we all know they're pretty amazing, but they also can be amazingly distracting, especially when we're around other people. So US Cellular wants us to reset our relationship with our phones by putting down our phones for $5. That's right, a company that sells phones wants us to put down our phones. And to see what we find, learn more at uscellular.com/built for us.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Have you ever experienced turbulence on a flight and wondered why?
And you can see all the terrain around you. You've got no issue with visibility or anything?
No, everything's PG.
Maybe you've sat on the tarmac for hours wondering why your plane isn't moving.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
Listen in on the conversations between pilots and air traffic controllers on the Air Traffic Out of Control podcast.
512 Whiskey declaring an emergency. There's smoke in the cabin. I need to make a landing right now on 31 left.
We have the most interesting, wild, and funny ATC recordings you will ever hear. Check out Air Traffic Out of Control wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Being on the weak side and then getting to the strong side, like no problem, just because he simply sees the play develop before anybody else. I think that goes hand in hand with, like you talk about, football IQ or FBI. What's your football intelligence? And not getting caught with your hand in a cookie jar and guessing wrong, because it's not a guessing game; it's a diagnosis, right? So you're seeing it before anyone else, and I think that's huge. And I don't care if you're giving up an inch or two in size if you're able to see it quicker than anyone else is, because you're right, Clayton. That has nothing to do with size or speed. That's a football IQ kind of thing, or a feel type of thing when you're out there on the field. And we've definitely had issues with that the past couple of years on defense.
All right. So, and again, we're not suggesting he's going to be a first round pick or maybe even a second round pick. To me, it looks like he's somewhere between the third and the fifth round, depending on who you talk to. I would love to see him take a flyer on him in the third round. Let him compete with Isaiah McDuffie and whoever else might be that will backer. That is if you don't get one of the top guys. So let's move right along here. Greg Cosell breaking down. I think it's Peyton Wilson he's talking about now.
Who's over 6'4", okay? I met Peyton Wilson at the Maxwell dinner in Atlanta this year. I mean, he looks thin. He's 6'4", 233, 234. but man, he has a waist that I would love to have, Ross. He's an explosive mover. He's long. He's athletic. He's got really good speed. He's a sideline to sideline player. At North Carolina State, he played everywhere, but he's going to be a stack backer. I talked to him about that. Teams see him as a stack backer. He's a really intriguing player because he brings length and speed. And, as you said, we're not going to talk about the importance or lack thereof, depending on what people think. But I'll tell you one thing. When your linebackers are fast, your defense looks fast. Think about the Ravens with Queen and Smith. Queen's obviously not there anymore. But when your linebackers are fast, your defense looks fast. And Wilson can run. And then Junior Colson to me.
All right, so he's going to get into Junior Colson next. So let's drop this down and go to the big board and take a quick look at our boy Peyton Wilson. And we'll kind of take you from Jeremiah Trotter to Peyton Wilson here. So you see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. here in the 75 spot, right? So if we climb up, where's Peyton Wilson at? He's in the 54 spot on my board, okay? So why did he end up in the 54 spot? In 2022, he was the 287th highest graded stack backer, okay? And when we talk stack backer too, guys, understand Matt LaFleur scolded the media this year for this, and I got to be real with you guys. I absolutely loved it because everybody's so quick to call for people's jobs, and they don't even understand what the hell they're watching on Sundays. A stack backer is a backer that is not playing on the line of scrimmage, okay? So when we were talking about – when people would say the Packers are only playing with two defensive linemen, they were actually playing with a four-man front. And outside linebackers in the 34 are basically defensive ends. I thought everybody knew that. I was really blown away at how many media members did not know that.
Watch how surprised they'll be when they become, listed as defensive ends now, like officially, right?
It's wild. So anyway, a stack backer is like, think in our 34 defense, Quay Walker, Devondre Campbell, right, when we were running a 34. Now that you're running a 43, you're going to have three stand-up linebackers. You say stand-up, that kind of resonates with people. When you say stack backers, it means they're stacked behind the defensive front. That's all that means, okay? A Sam is on the strong side. A Will is on the weak side, opposite the tight end side, and your Mike is your true middle linebacker is essentially how that works, okay? So Peyton Wilson as a stack backer, 287th graded stack backer in 2022, okay? In 2023, he jumped all the way to 6th. I mean, that is really, really impressive out of NC State, okay? The consensus big board bet in January, though, they had him in the 82 spot. Tim, the season had wrapped up, and they had Peyton Wilson at 82, right? So you kind of look at it and go, okay, 287th graded linebacker in 2022. 2023, the 6th highest graded linebacker. 82 is probably a pretty fair spot for him to be in. So how does he end up so high on everyone's boards now? Some people got him in the 20s, right? Some people got him in the
33rd team has him as the number one Will.
There you go. What's his overall ranking according to the 33rd team, Tim?
40th.
40th. So they got him in the 40 spot. How do you go from 82 to 40 like that, right? Now, in the 33rd team's defense, when I took this information down back in January, they had him in the 39 spot. So they've been high on him the entire time, even before the combine. Daniel Jeremiah has him in the 47 spot. So that's what concerns me a little bit about Peyton Wilson. And again, if you get the guy that performed in 2023, you're getting an absolute stud. I understand there's injury concerns. He will be labeled red on my board just so it makes your mind go, whoa, okay, on the horizontal board. Why is he red? Let's go look at that. Injuries, personal issues, whatever it may be. For him, it'll be injury concern because I think he's had 2 ACLs, if I remember correctly. But anyway, 33rd team had him at 39th at the time. Daniel Jeremiah had him at 47 in his top 50. So notice I don't have Daniel Jeremiah's top 150. It's not out yet. And I would rather lean on the top 50 rather than the top 150 because that top 150 is after the combine. So the reason he jumped is obviously the combine. That's why he took this just dramatic jump towards the top. So that's why he lands in the 54 spot for me, he being Peyton Wilson. So, Tim, what you're getting there, man, is you're getting an athletic freak. He's going to be a will backer most likely, right? He's not really a gap destroyer, but he is one of those guys that's got sideline to sideline speed. And as we talked about with 4-3 linebackers, especially in this defense, that will backer, you notice here at the bottom, The most athletic player in this group is generally the weak side linebacker, known for his elite open field tackling on cutbacks and his zone coverage ability in the flats. Now, some people would say that's Quay Walker. I can't argue that. I'm not going to try to dispute it. But if you draft someone like Peyton Wilson and he's going to be the will, you're forcing Quay to play the Mike. Yep. And what I mean by Mike is we're going to be in the nickel probably somewhere between 70 to 80% of the time. So there's only going to be 2 stack backers on the field in our nickel, meaning if it's Peyton Wilson that we somehow draft here, less than a week from now, or, and we've got Quay Walker with him, you got to decide which one of those are going to play the Mike, which one's going to be the green dot. I imagine it would be Quay over Peyton Wilson if we went that route. So what do you think about Peyton Wilson, Tim?
He's definitely he's not undersized. That's for sure.
Right.
That's what she said.
But all seriousness, he'd be a great pick. He would. And would give us a little bit of flexibility there in the linebacker room, I think, with his athleticism for sure. So, yeah, I like Peyton Wilson.
Yeah, definitely. CJN in the chat says one of the best mock drafts we had was with Colson and Trotter Jr. being drafted. I completely agree. Colson is a true mock backer. If you draft Colson and you put him in at mock, you play Quay at will and allow him to be that athletic freak we're talking about. And then when you are in your 4-3 defense, whatever it is, 20, 25, 30% of the time, then you'll be bringing in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as potentially your Sam or your Will, depending on the matchups. That's the other thing you got to take into consideration. Like, just because you say someone's a Sam doesn't mean they're playing Sam every snap. It depends on the team you're playing. Like, if the team you're playing has an attached tight end that's not really a receiving threat, then you may want to put Quay over at the Will and have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. play the Sam because he's not really covering the tight end down the seam. Now, if you play someone who's got a really, really athletic tight end, whoever drafts Brock Bowers, someone like that, then you might want to put Quay on him. So Quay can be a little more of that, that taller in height, a little more athleticism to be able to cover that guy as opposed to, someone like a Trotter Jr. But yeah, I agree. If we landed both those guys, I would be over the freaking moon because chances are you're going to hit on one of them. Ron Samuel in the chat said, Tim, would you be happy with Trotter at that 91 pick?
Yes.
Happy as a possum in a dumpster.
You already know it, man. And I think Trotter Jr. could play the Mike, other than the size factor, right? We keep talking about him being undersized, but when you talk about like the ability to diagnose things and get in there, especially in those run fits, I think situationally he could be a Mike. We even talked about McDuffie possibly, being a Mike in some situations as well. So, but yeah, no, Trotter Jr. at 91, that would meet my approval. Yes, I would take that for sure.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like, people say, well, he's a will, right? As if he can't play Mike. And then the second your Mike goes down with an injury, it's going to happen. Like, linebackers get banged up. The second your Mike goes down with an injury, all of a sudden that guy that there's no chance he can play Mike, that will pops over to Mike now. And it's like everybody, all right, let's just stop talking about it for a second and we'll just pretend like we never said that. And lo and behold, it's not ideal, but these guys are going to be very interchangeable in that regard too if you do come into contact with injuries, which we know they will. So they're getting into my favorite linebacker now, Junior Colson, and you're going to understand with Clayton and his boring self and how he fans, you're going to find out real quick the reason Junior Colson lands at the top of the heap on my board is because, to me, he's the safest pick. He has the highest floor. We've tried that with the high ceiling guys, and to me, it hasn't worked out that well. Give me a high floor guy, someone. Okay, let's raise that baseline just a touch. That's kind of what you get here with Junior Colson. Let's see what Greg Cosell had to say.
Me, it's just a really, really solid prospect. Like, I don't see him as an impact playmaker type, Ross, but he reminds me of, I'm going to give you 3 names. And again, these just popped into my head when I was watching Colson. He's like a Jordan Hicks or Jermaine Pratt or Zaire Franklin, just really solid players who are going to make a lot of tackles. You might not call them impact playmakers, game changers, but I always feel like every team needs those kinds of players.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why those guys have all gotten contracts, right?
And Jordan Hicks has been in the league, 10, 11 years now. And, Zaire Franklin makes a ton of tackles. You agree with me, though. You wouldn't say any one of those guys is an impact game-changing playmaker, but they're just really good players.
1,000%. And it's interesting, Because the Eagles, people talk a lot about the Eagles and linebackers. They would have been happy to have Jordan Hicks the last 5 years.
Oh, without
They would have
question.
been happy to still have TJ Edwards last year. You know, they're considered just solid players until they go somewhere else, and you have guys that are less than solid, and then you're like, oh no, they were actually good.
Well, you know, it's funny because the draft is different from when you talk to defensive coaches. I remember when Steve Spagnuolo, the year he took off, and he was in my office almost every Monday watching tape to stay close to the game, and I got to.
You want to know why I like Greg Cosell? That, like, he does this all the time. You heard him talking about watching tape with Jeremiah Trotter Sr. You heard him talking about watching tape with Spagnuolo. When people take a year or two off or when they first get out of the game, they go to NFL Films headquarters. That's where Greg Cosell's office is. He's a senior producer of NFL Matchup. Been there since, he's been breaking down tape since the 1970s. So he gets a chance to zip it and study from coaches who were in the game. And I guarantee you those coaches will tell you they've learned from him too. So he's just like a professor hanging out at NFL Films all the time. That's why I take his opinion with a lot more value than the dude on Twitter with 37 followers who continues to, point out why everybody's wrong about their draft. So anyway.
Know Spags really well. And we would have great conversations about different positions on defense. And the one thing, this is the way coaches think, which is different than fans, draft gurus, whatever you want to call whatever we do. And he said, the thing is, if you don't have good players at certain positions, it limits your playbook. And I don't think people think like that, but coaches do, because they can't do certain things if they don't feel that the player at a given position is not good enough to be able to do those things. And that changes the way they go about game planning, putting together their defense, calling a game. So, it's easy to say a position is not important until you don't have a good guy there.
It's such a good point, Greg. You know, another good point.
All right, so they're going to get a quick ad in here on us, but let me drop that down real quick now, Tim, and I'm going to show you my vertical board once again and where Junior Colson sits and why he sits there. So keep in mind, this has nothing to do with what Greg Cosell had to say about him. That bonus is added in, of course. But when you look at Junior Colson here on my board, he is sitting right here's Peyton Wilson, right in the 54 spot. And then you jump up the 48th is, keep in mind, there's a one spot placeholder. That's why I'm going one less than what the number actually is. So 48th on my board is Junior Colson. Why is that? This is a great opportunity to compare these two prospects, right? Junior Colson's PFF grade in 2022 was 142nd amongst stacked backers. Peyton Wilson's was 287th. So 130 spots higher, players higher in 2022. All right. Peyton Wilson was the sixth highest graded linebacker in 2023. Junior Colson was the 52nd. You're seeing a more stable, a less volatile grade there, right, Tim? Like you're seeing someone who's a little more consistent in that regard. Now, Peyton Wilson was in the 82 spot back in January on the consensus big board. Junior Colson was 85th. So they're neck and neck right there, right? Yep. Peyton Wilson was 39th on the 33rd team's board at the time that I took the information down. Junior Colson was 35th. So you're seeing all the way across the board with Junior Colson, you're just seeing a consistent, that high floor we're talking about. Daniel Jeremiah had him in the 45 spot. Oh, by the way, that's 2 spots higher than Peyton Wilson. Now, that may change on his final 150 because some of that whole mock draft stuff, if he hears certain teams are interested in him, then they may go, let me raise him up a little bit. Obviously, there's more value there around him. I want to know what people thought when the season was over. I don't care about all the positive, the extra positive, negative comments, the rumor mill, all that stuff. I don't want to hear about that because that's how your board can get convoluted. Again, I trust Daniel Jeremiah. He's one of my favorite that covers the draft. But the other thing that hurt Junior Colson, he did not participate in the combine. Right. So you don't have that RAS. Peyton Wilson got that maximum bonus of 5 points there. Right. So that's why he comes in. I gave him a 3-point bonus based off of what Cosell said. And with Peyton Wilson, I gave him a 5-point bonus because he was a little higher on Peyton Wilson than Junior Colson. But he pointed out with Junior Colson, hey, look, this guy's more of a just a solid prospect. So what do you think of Junior Colson, Tim?
Freaking beast. And what sells it for me with him, if you a lot of different analysis has pointed this out, but it's his ability on third downs. He's one of these guys that when you get in these third down situations and you need a play, it's like he tunes up a little bit more on third down. And one of the things that has driven me absolutely bananas, bonkers, insane, crazy throughout the last 3 to 5 seasons is our inability to get off the field on third down and end these drives. And having a guy like this is going to be huge. Another positive is he plays quick, and he's able to cover too. So when you talk about those third and shorts where you might get a little deception, you might get a play action, or you might get an RPO or something, he's able, like you were saying, able to process that and see it and have good instincts there if he needs to fall back into coverage. So Junior Colson is he's a beast. I hope we get him. I really do. If we land him and Trotter Jr. and then a couple of good corners and a safety, I will be just absolutely ecstatic on draft day for sure.
Absolutely. Imagine if you were to take Junior Colson's processing ability, his gap destroying ability, and coverage ability, right? And combine that with Peyton Wilson's athletic ability, and combine that with Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s ability to wrap up and tackle and just play fundamentally sound. You would have you would have a top 5 linebacker.
AJ Hawk.
Right. You would have a top 5 linebacker pick. There's no doubt about it. And I think you described it to a T. That's whether you like AJ Hawk or think that he underperformed or not. AJ Hawk was taken in the top 5 for a reason. He could do all that. He was kind of that perfect linebacker prospect coming out when he did. Now, he wouldn't be today because they would consider him undersized now. But the guy was a team captain, all-time tackler in Packers history, Super Bowl champion, national champion in college football. He did it all, man. So,
with Colson, man, even his weaknesses, they all strike me as things that when he gets to the NFL level, they can coach him out of.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah.
Pursuit angles, taking bad angles. Like, okay, let's that's going to come with adjusting for the speed of the game too, right? You make that jump from college to the pros, and the first thing a lot of guys notice is, holy crap, everything's happening a lot faster. I think you can coach him up on taking better angles. Same thing with against the run, being balanced, like Mike Wall talks about from his offensive line perspective. It applies to the defense too. How you arrive at confrontation is how you handle it. Right. So I think those are things he can be coached up on. So he clearly, would you consider him a blue chip? I would say he's a blue chip.
It's tough, man. I've never really gotten into the blue chip, red chip talk. I know Michael Lombardi does it. I'm ignorant. I don't, and I'm not saying that trying to joke. Like, I really don't understand. All right, I need to know what is the specification for what's a blue chip, what's a red chip. When I hear blue chip, I think that's a player that's the best of the best in the draft, right? I don't think Junior Colson is that, if that's what that means, if that makes sense to him. Mm-hmm. A red chip is more of a like that next tier top guy. I just see Junior Colson as he's the best linebacker in the draft, but I think he's a early second round pick, That's kind of where I see him. And again, you're going to get a guy who's going to be able to contribute a little bit more early, but don't be surprised if some of these athletic freaks like a Peyton Wilson, if he stays healthy, of course, or an Edgerrin Cooper, if his game develops, he could pass Junior Colson up as a linebacker in the NFL. It's just, I would much rather take the safer pick there, especially when you're picking like in the second round. Just go get that slam dunk dude that can help you right now because, as we pointed out with the linebackers, current state of the linebackers on the Packers roster, it's like you got some bodies there. You got some guys. I like McDuffie. I just don't see him as a solid, like a quality starting linebacker. He's one of those guys that if he has to come in off the bench, I'm not going, oh, crap, McDuffie's in. I'm going, all right, that's all right. We got Duff. We're good. But him starting every week and then going to a third stringer, if he gets banged up, that makes me nervous. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I see it.
And I think that when it comes to linebacker, the Packers are looking for that. They're looking for someone that's not going to be a project, someone that can probably come in and contribute, right away. I mean, the writing's on the wall. This team feels like they can run at a Lombardi. I believe they can run at a Lombardi. They exceeded expectations in a lot of respects last season. Yep. This season, they're dead serious. It's time to roll. We saw it with the acquisition of Josh Jacobs. We saw it with, Xavier McKinney being brought in. We're going to see it here when Goody knocks this draft out of the park. They're looking for guys, especially on this defense, that are going to contribute in a meaningful way early and often in this season. So I'm excited.
And they said that with their wallet this offseason when they went out and paid Xavier McKinney the money they did, right? Like they're going into the playoffs last year. It's like, okay, we barely squeak into the playoffs. I'm going, all right, we still need some pieces. Then you absolutely boat race Dallas in Jerry World. And I'm like, Super Bowl window's open. Let's push the chips in the middle of the table here and let's try to run at this thing. And like you said, if you can kind of knock this draft out of the park, man, you're going to be in good shape. So,
yep.
All right, let's do this. Let's get back to the clip here. We got one more prospect they're going to break down. And I apologize if you guys hear the pups barking in the background. We've got a visitor evidently. But let's get into Edgerrin Cooper now, all right, and see what he has to say about Edgerrin Cooper, who many people see as the best linebacker in this draft.
That blue is delicious. I love it.
Let's get through this ad
wait
first.
For A, this weekend, and B, a week from the night, NFL draft. I think I'll be working, but if I'm not, I'll be drinking some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends and living life to the power of we always enjoy responsibly beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. What about, Greg, any of these other guys that are on the board, like a Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M?
Well, let's talk Cooper. He's the most explosive stack backer in this draft class. I mean, this guy is a dynamic mover. He has playmaking traits. He's going to have to play more physically at the NFL level. He's not sort of a take-on stack and shed guy, which leads me to believe he'll start his career in sub defenses. But this guy is explosive. He's a dynamic blitzer. There's no question, just in terms of sheer athletic movement and twitch and suddenness, that he is the number one guy at the stack backer position in this draft class, which, again, doesn't mean he's going to be the best player the second he walks in, day one in the league. But this guy is dynamic, and he will play early, but I think it'll be in sub defenses.
You know what I think, Greg, that we don't.
Tim, is it just me? That doesn't sound as appealing to Junior Colson.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and listen, he said it clear. He's the best linebacker in this draft. But we're going to have to play him in subs. It's like, hold up.
It almost sounds contradictory, right? But
right. And
I do understand what he's saying.
Me too. Yeah, exactly. So it's tough. And the other thing too, he can blitz. He's a dynamic blitzer. Okay, so he's going to play Will or Sam.
I think it feels like, it's on how it looks on paper versus how it's going to look on the field, right?
Yeah.
On paper, yeah, he's probably the best. Do we really feel that way? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. To me, this feels like the Quay Walker of this draft. That's what it feels like. He's that guy that, hey, look, he may be a little lower on the boards, but someone's going to reach and they're going to grab him like the Packers grabbed Quay, because the upside is just through the freaking roof. If you hit on him, you're going to have a solid linebacker for a very, very long time, a dynamic linebacker, a fast linebacker, someone who can play with a lot of speed
and aggressiveness. But explosive, aggressive type of player. That's a lot. I've seen a lot of write-ups talking about his just, an aggressive approach, and that's what we as fans have been talking about.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we've all complained about that. We want more aggressiveness, right?
Yep.
So if we go back to the big board and where Edgerrin Cooper is, again, I got Junior Colson at 48. I told you guys why. Peyton Wilson at 54. I told you guys why. Talked about the PFF grades, where he landed on the board, the RAS and everything. Cedric Gray, he did not talk about. I've got him in the 64 spot. PFF grade was 44th amongst linebackers in 2022, dropped to 174 in 2023, was 98th on the consensus big board in January, and the 33rd team had him at 37. He is one of those guys they consider a mock linebacker. So the three true mock linebackers you have in this draft, according to the 33rd team, is Junior Colson, Cedric Gray, and Trayvon Wallace. Everybody else is outside of the top 100. Now, I've got Trayvon Wallace outside of my top 100, but the 33rd team's a lot higher on him. Again, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., more of that Will backer, 75th on my board. PFF grades through the wazoo. Everything just solid across it. Other than the size, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is the real deal there. And obviously, we don't have the athletic score because he did not participate in that. He had a pro day. To the best of my knowledge, that information stayed confidential. I have not seen it anywhere. I've been combing through the internet trying to find it, and I don't see it anywhere. So you find Edgerrin Cooper in the 78 spot. The reason he's so low on my board, let's try to identify this real quick. Why is he so low on my board? I gave him a 10-point bonus because, like I said, Greg Cosell was raving over him, right? He was a top 30 visit with the Packers. That has nothing to do with the score, but just want to mention that real quick. So RAS, 9+, absolutely crushed his RAS. When you look at the PFF grades, the reason he's so low on my board, in 2022, his PFF grade was 383rd amongst stacked backers in college football. Like that's not 200. That's, it's not 150. It's like, oh man. But then in 2023, he jumps all the way to second. So something clicked, obviously, right? The consensus big board had him in the 51 spot back in January. The 33rd team pulled him back down a touch. They have him in the 126 spot. At least they did when I took the info. But Daniel Jeremiah pops him right back up on the list. He had him in his top 50 at the number 20 spot when he did that about a month ago. So that's why he lands where he lands. If you remove the 2022 PFF grade, then you're probably looking at him being the best backer in this draft on my board. So that's what pulled him down. And I think it's important that you see it more than just 1 year. Again, if the Packers decide, hey, we're going to take him with the 25th pick, if he is on the board, I don't know if he'll be there. But if they take him, I'd be okay with it because that tells me, all right, they think they've got a high upside they're going to hit on. I just I tend to like Junior Colson a little bit better based off of the high floor. But what do you think about Edgerrin Cooper? Anything else you want to add to him, Tim?
Not really. I'm pretty much with you there in lockstep. I like Colson a little more. Mm-hmm. But, if Colson's not on the board and Edgerrin Cooper is at 25 and Goot wants to take a swing at linebacker there, I'm not upset with that pick. As far as Mikes go, I'm probably a little higher on Cedric Gray than most, but if we're looking for a Mike, that would be my pick. But yeah, I mean, Edgerrin Cooper making it to 25, I don't know. We'll see. Crazier things have happened, but my prediction would be, within a few picks, he's probably gone. And I don't know if we actually move up to get a guy like that.
Right. So I'm putting the horizontal board together here. Okay. And I wanted you guys to get kind of a glance at it and what I mean by the horizontal board. When we talk about it, it shows you the depth of the entire draft. Okay. I'm going to try to spread this out just a touch so you can see them all. And again, I know you can't read the names. I'm going to zoom in on the linebackers in just a second. That is every position on the board. So you can see how it kind of talks to you. You can see where the clusters are. Over here, you got your quarterback. So this first column is quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive tackle, interior offensive line with the position specifying if they're a center or not. Defensive line, edge, linebacker, cornerback, and safety, okay? Notice the safety void over here, Tim. Like there is no safeties at the top. And then you get to Tyler Nubin and Cooper DeJean. I went ahead and put Cooper DeJean at safety because I feel like safety is a more important position than cornerback, especially one that can play a slot and play a safety in the base. So I just
especially on this team, right? If we're looking at this from a Packer perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone who's going to be a little more versatile for sure. There's not many people that see Cooper DeJean as an outside corner. I know Packer fans love him. I like him as a slot corner and as a safety. I've not heard anyone go, oh, no, this dude's dynamic on the outside. It's always he can play on the outside, but he's more of a slot. He's more of a safety, right? So that's why I put him in the safety spot there. But if you look at corner, right, and how it stacks, and again, I'm going to zoom in if you guys can't read the names. I understand. This is just to show you kind of an overall viewpoint of the horizontal board. Quinyon Mitchell is, hands down, in my opinion, the best corner in this draft, right? Then it drops down to Kool-Aid McKinstry. Then you got a little bit of space, and it's Nate Wiggins, Terry and Arnold, and Ennis Rakestraw are kind of grouped together. So you'll see a little run on those guys right there.
Ennis Rakestraw Jr., you are a Green Bay Packer.
That's right.
At 41, let's go.
What's cool about the horizontal board is if you click on the horizontal board here, right, you'll notice on the left over here, and it is kind of hard to see. Let me go ahead and zoom in now that you kind of get the idea here. Let me go 125. So he's worthy of the 26th pick according to the horizontal board. You see what I'm saying? So Ennis Rakestraw his grade, the final grade that I came with was a 36.8, lower being the more valuable number here, obviously. If you used him, if you drafted him with the 26th pick, I'd be okay with it, right? Because that's kind of how he lines up on the horizontal board, because it shows you these guys are really, really close together and how they're graded. That's why it's important. So now if we key in on linebacker, like we were going to do here, which is this void right here where there's no one, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so if you look at the defensive players. Maybe we can kind of keep it zoomed in a little bit on defense. Let's start with defensive line and edge. So the best defensive player in this draft, in my opinion, is Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. Next is Latu, edge defender out of UCLA, but he's lit up in red because of the neck injury. There's still some questions there, right? Some teams, he may clear their medicals completely, and they're not even worried about it. But I'm going to have it on our board so we know, all right, there's a little bit of a question there about the injury concern, right? Next defender would be Byron Murphy, defensive lineman out of Texas. He's worthy of the 14, or let's say the 13 spot. It really would be two placeholders because we got our positions in here now, Tim. So it'd really be worth the 12th pick there. So as high as the 12th pick, it would be, it's kind of in that ballpark. Jerzon Newton is coming in what would be the 14 spot, right? Johnny Newton, defensive lineman. So you see these two guys are so close together. I would be okay with either if they fell to 25, right? And when you get these teams that you've got a cluster of a position where it's a position of need meets the best player available, and you got a cluster, that's why they trade back. It's like, okay, I'd be okay with either of these guys. Let's trade back a pick or two, right? So were you going to say something, Tim?
No, just like, yeah, if either one of those guys falls to 25, that's like an auto draft right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we've had mocks with those players turning up in that scenario. So, I mean,
right.
I don't know. Just make sure you get this sent over to Goody. Make sure you CC me on the email too, so we can get this big board going.
Goody would look at this board and go, "This joker ain't got a damn clue." I guarantee it. So Jared Verse, edge defender from Florida State, is the next one. He's worthy of the 15th pick, in my opinion. Kool-Aid McKinstry would be the next defender. He comes in the 16th spot, worthy of the 16th pick. And then it kind of drops down a bit, right? And the next one will be Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson, worthy of the 21st pick. And then you get a little cluster of players here, right? You get Braylon Trice, edge defender from Washington, in the 22 spot. Terrion Arnold is in the 22 spot. And our boy Tyler Nubin is in the 22 spot.
Hello, Nubin.
So according to my horizontal board, right, he is worthy of the 22nd pick. Now, notice these guys are on the same line, but look at the grade. Remember, the lower number wins, okay? So Terrion Arnold is just 0.2 of a point better than both Tyler Nubin and Braylon Trice, who have a very similar grade. Actually, he's 0.2 of a point higher than Tyler Nubin, he being Terrion Arnold. And then Tyler Nubin is 0.2 of a point higher than Braylon Trice. Now, I could convert this over to the traditional front office way of grading players and start with a 70 plus, then a 69, a 68, a 67. But I just like to keep this because this breaks it down even finer, in my opinion. It's even more detailed, right? So, and that's where you can kind of get into your tiers and weigh those guys out. So, to me, Tyler Nubin is slightly better than Cooper DeJean. And I know I'm going to get hate mail for this. I don't care. You guys seen how I walked through the grading process. I took into consideration 4 or 5 different websites and people that I trust. We implemented personal scouts' opinion of Daniel Jeremiah and Greg Cosell. We applied an athletic score boost if they meet the requirements there. Everything's taken into consideration, right? So that's why I'm so high on Tyler Nubin, man. I think he is worthy of the 22nd pick. I really do. And most people would say we would never do that because the RAS isn't high enough. There's no way we would take him at 25. I completely agree. When he's sitting at 41, Tim, I just can't pass it up, man. I can't, So your boy Ennis Rakestraw, obviously, coming in there in the 24 spot with a 36.8 grade. So really like how he graded out there too. Just really, really cool stuff. I just want to give you guys kind of a quick glance there. Now, again, we're talking linebacker. I pointed all that out because we're how many players? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, roughly 13 players deep here with Dallas Turner coming up next. And we still haven't got to the first linebacker. So the first linebacker on my board is Junior Colson in the 35 spot. So he's worthy of the 35th pick, which means 25 would be too much of a reach for me. But remember the exercise we did yesterday, Tim, where we went back to the old consensus big board?
Yep.
The Packers are willing to reach on players they like, according to the consensus big board. They reached on LVN. They got him 2 spots higher than he actually set on the consensus big board. That's splitting hairs. They reached 8 spots for Luke Musgrave. They reached 39 spots for Jaden Reed with where he lined up on the consensus big board. They reached 34 spots to get Kobe Wooden. They reached 12 spots to get Dontavian Wicks. They reached 274 spots to draft Sean Clifford. That says 2 things. I think it is true. They're willing to reach based off of what the public perception is, but it also says their board is way different than the consensus big board, right?
And it also says that our GM has 0 difficulty with making tough decisions.
Absolutely.
He is decisive. If he's got his eyes on someone, they are not on the board. There's 5 other guys ready to roll that he's ready to pick from. And, just quick props to Mr. Gutekunst for sure. We're blessed with our GM.
Yeah. Mr. Duckskin in the chat says, why are we talking about first-round linebacker? I thought they were second round. Nobody said to draft one in the first round. Nobody said, I think we should draft one in the first round. We're simply pointing out if Goody has a grade on him there and you look at the upside and the positives in which Greg Cosell's talking about, the RAS, the high athletic score of an Edgerrin Cooper, of a Peyton Wilson, you can see why they're willing to do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Or even Junior Colson.
Yeah. You're not going to find – I don't think you're going to find a single mock draft where we took a linebacker in the first round, but we're a bunch of knuckleheads. No one said they were going to take Quay Walker. You're not going to find a human on earth other than Peter Schrager that said they should take Quay Walker with the 22nd.
No one said we were going to take a corner in the first round a few years back, and then we drafted Jair.
It all depends on what Goody has on his board, right, and where he sees the athletic upside for sure. Ben Holden says Nubin at 58. You give me Nubin at 58, man, I'm doing a happy dance over here. I promise you that.
Clayton's going to come up in here like,
who do you think you are? I am. I think it's a long shot for them to draft Nubin. I really do, because that athletic score is so low. But maybe they're looking up like last year and going, you know what, we did this with Reed, and this worked out pretty darn good.
pretty good.
Drew D in the chat said, if we keep Nubin in the box, I don't think RAS matters as much. So the second would make sense. He would definitely be the box safety, but safeties in today's NFL have got to be able to play both. We broke down 3 or 4 plays over Xavier McKinney with the Giants defense last year, right? Yep. As soon as they made the signing. And the thing we came away with then was like, this dude is playing all over the place. That's how every defense is in the league. Like, both safeties have to be interchangeable in today's game. It's no longer is it just you're just the box safety, you're going to be the free safety. It's got to be very, very interchangeable now. But I agree exactly with what you're saying there, Drew. The RAS doesn't matter. And that's the other thing too. He plays with his eyes. He's always a half a step ahead of everyone else. He being Nubin, just like Junior Colson is. So just got and Jeremiah Trotter is probably the best linebacker in this draft when it comes to playing with his eyes. He's just one step ahead. And I think that's got a lot to do with being raised by a former stud linebacker. His dad constantly giving him tips on where to look, where to keep your eyes, what to key in on, what's the formation, what are the wide receiver splits, what's the left tackle doing with his hand right now? Why is he twitching his left hand if he's looking to run block? He's twitching to drop back here.
Why does that slot receiver have his mouthpiece hanging?
Right.
What's going on here?
People hear that and they think, oh, whatever. No, that's a real thing. Like, those are tendencies they look for sure.
Yep.
Let's see here. All right. So back to linebacker. Junior Colson, worthy of the 35th pick, in my opinion, as it sits right now. Again, these may shuffle just a touch, but this horizontal board is just about complete. Next is Peyton Wilson, worthy of the 40th pick. So what's that tell you? At 41, I would be okay with that. At 41, I would be okay with Junior Colson or Peyton Wilson, really, or Cedric Gray at 41. I'd be fine with those. Cedric Gray comes in. Cedric Gray comes in at the 47 spot, right? And again, I'm going to turn him blue is what we're going to end up doing just to show you. Like, he's going to end up being blue. Junior Colson's going to end up being blue. Oh, not green, blue. Colorblind for a minute. That means they are true mocks, right? So that's how we can kind of differentiate between those mock backers and the will backers. Again, Peyton Wilson, he may get drafted by somebody and they turn him into a mock. He's just not shown that according to the 33rd team and according to people who keep saying, no, you want to use his athletic ability for him to blitz. That's not more of a mock gap destroyer type player. So if you slide on down, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., in my opinion, is worthy of the 55th pick. Adrian Cooper is worthy of the 56th pick. So him and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. are right there kind of bunched up together, right? And again, both of those are wills, so they're not going to get stamped with the blue. The next one will be Trayvon Wallace, and he'd be significantly lower on my board. So now I'm going to do this, Tim. Again, it doesn't matter that you see the names. I may zoom back in a second. I want you guys to see the entire horizontal board here, and I want you to see it in a little bit different way here. And the reason it's so important to kind of look at it like this, I know a lot of quarterbacks are getting cut off. We can get that just a little bit. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So when you look at the horizontal board as a whole here, right, and at least the top 90, however many prospects there are, some people are looking at the colors and going, what do the colors mean, Clayton? Like, so the dark green, right, like Joe Alt here, that means he meets the maximum threshold for the Packers and what they want in an offensive tackle. Okay. Rome Odunze meets that maximum threshold and what the Packers like in a wide receiver. Talking about there's a handful of things that over the past, and again, Ryan did a great job covering this on Packernet podcast the other day. We're 100% lockstep on how we look at this. It doesn't mean they're taking people off their board. What it simply means is if you come up to pick and you got 3 or 4 prospects that are in the same tier, they're bunched up in the same area, and one meets the thresholds in which the Packers have shown historically in the past that's what they really like, they're probably going to lean toward that guy over the others. That's all that means. But again, it's important information. Latu is red because of the injury concern, right? Graham Barton, dark green. Why is he dark green? Because he meets all the maximum thresholds for an interior offensive lineman, a guard. One of those being tackle experience, which he has, right? So which is huge. Tavondre Sweat, he's not injured. Why is he red? Because he got hit with that DWI, right? That's going to cause him to drop. I don't drop him on my board because now you create an inaccuracy on your board. The board should say, here's how good a player is, right? And then you have these little notifiers, these little notifications in this sense, or in this case, it being a red marker that says, oh, pause, go look at him. Something's there, right? And we know what it is. It's the DWI here recently. Some teams may look at that and go, oh, that was nothing. He was out at dinner with his mom and had a little something in the system, and it wasn't even a big issue. Others may look at it and go, nope, we're not going to have another Aaron Hernandez in our organization. We're taking him off the board, right? I'm not in no way, shape, or form trying to say Tavondre Sweat is on the same wavelength as Aaron Hernandez. I'm just simply saying people were looking at Aaron Hernandez the same way. And now the Patriots get absolutely roasted for it. Like, well, I can't believe you would put, citizens' personal health over drafting a player. No one knew he was going to turn into that, right? But that's why they do background checks, and they got, literally former government officials going around doing background checks on these players to make sure you don't come up with anything major. I don't think it's anything huge issue with Tavondre Sweat, but I want to know there's something there. Dark green for Cooper Beebe, perfect threshold fit for the Packers. Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State, my best running back in the draft, perfect threshold fit for the Packers. Notice Audric Estime does not have the dark green, right, Tim? Neither does Blake Corum. Those guys are coupled right together. Some would consider them in the same tier of talent. If the Packers were going to take a running back at that position, they'd probably lean toward Trey Benson because he meets everything that they've drafted in the past as far as threshold. Does that make sense, man?
Absolutely.
All right. Chris Jenkins, defensive lineman, the first defensive lineman that I've got on my board that meets those thresholds. So someone that you might want to keep an eye on there, right? Chris Jenkins.
There's a guy.
Yeah. Tight end,
Michigan.
Tight end Cade Stover is the first tight end to meet all the criteria. Some people are going, Brock Bowers didn't meet the threshold. He didn't have all of his combine numbers there. He didn't go to the combine, and he doesn't have a full RAS card. So you can't. I think everyone would agree he would meet them. but I'm not going to put it on my board because technically he didn't meet that, right? Jatavian Sanders. Obviously, he is way better than Cade Stover. If you were in the tight end market here, as far as looking to potentially draft a tight end this draft, you would look at Jatavian Sanders and go, okay, he doesn't meet our thresholds, but man, look how much better he is on our horizontal board than Cade Stover, right? You probably lean towards Jatavian Sanders. That's what Ryan was saying on the pod. Don't sit here and pretend like, oh, there's absolutely no way they're ever going to draft someone because of those thresholds. It's just not true, right? So, since we're out of time, I want to jump down here and show you what the orange is. The orange is really interesting. Notice there's 3 A's at the backside of him too. Here, let me zoom in real quick just to show you guys if we can get to the right spot here. I want you to see what I'm talking about here when it comes to offensive tackle Tyler Guyton. Now, I'm not as big on Tyler Guyton. I think he's worthy of the 45th pick. But notice how he's oranged him, and notice how there's 3 A's there. Every time there's a marker, okay, that I have to put on a player, I just add an A, just a quick reference of, okay, there's one thing that stood out. What's the one thing that stood out about Pooney? Dominic Pooney met all the thresholds. He gets an A, okay? Tyler Guyton met the thresholds. He was also a top 30 visit, and he was a Senior Bowl participant. All 3 of those suggest the Packers would be all over Tyler Guyton in this draft.
And he's 6'8", 322 pounds, a beast of a man.
Athletic freak, which we know Goody loves. If there's someone right now that you say, Clayton, who's a wild card that the Packers would take at the 25th pick that doesn't line up on your board? I'm saying this guy right here, Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. I'm not saying I like the pick. I think it's a little early. But again, that's why Goody gets paid the big bucks, and I'm just a dumb redneck over here trying to figure things out.
Can you imagine Tyler Guyton and Caleb Jones at your tackles?
Oh my gosh, dude!
Like two big, gigantic castles on each side of your line.
Yeah, absolutely wild, dude. So that's what that color means. Okay, that orange. Now, some people are going, "What's the magenta?" Right? The whatever color you want to call that. Let's zoom in on it real quick, and we'll explain what that is, and we'll get out of here. If you zoom in on that purplish color, right? You've got Oladapo, safety out of Oregon State. Notice there's 2 A's there, right? If they're in the magenta color, what it means is top 30 visit, and they were at the Senior Bowl, both of which the Packers have drafted a significant amount of players that were at the Senior Bowl, and then, of course, the top 30 visits go without saying. So that's what kind of identifies them. When you have those 2 things line up, as well as the threshold, notice if he met the threshold, Tim, he would be an orange like Tyler Guyton. That makes sense?
So, absolutely.
That's how the horizontal board talks to you the entire draft. It's something that I've done now for about 10 years, not in spreadsheet form. This is the first year I've done it in spreadsheet form. I usually got the old school behind me and just mark it up on a grease board. But that's how the horizontal board talks to you as you go through the draft. And you guys see all this is an extension of my vertical board. Here's their rankings, and I'm just placing them in. Notice all this space right here. That shows you how close some of these prospects are together, which makes them worthy of a little bit higher pick. I'm not suggesting that anyone in the top 32 is a slam dunk first-round talent. Some teams may look at it and go, no, we've only got 18 players as first-round talents. That's more accurate than what I'm doing. I'm just simply saying you can only draft the guys that are available in the draft, and when you really look at how they line up on the horizontal board, that's what suggests to me, hey, he's worth the 36 pick or whatever, the 76 pick, whatever it is on the far left. So that's the horizontal board. I'm exhausted, Tim. I feel like I've been talking for 2 hours, bro. Let's wrap this thing up, man. You got anything else, buddy?
No, this was awesome, man. I'm always happy to talk defense any day of the week. So thanks for letting me jump on here today. This was cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, we just hit a little bit of weather today. Thought, you know what, let's go live. And I was listening to that podcast earlier this morning when I woke up having a cup of coffee, and I'm like, you know what, let's break down what the civilian GOAT Greg Cosell and Ross Tucker have to say about these guys. So there you go.
Absolutely.
All right, last
Love
one.
my defense, baby.
That's
right.
Possum in a dumpster.
Ben Holden in the chat said Alexander has a second gear. I saw his tape, and when the ball was in the air, his second gear kicked in. That's when I knew he was going to be he was going to be the best in the draft. Talking about Jair, I'm sure.
That's a good comment because I've always felt that way, and I still believe that's why Ja prefers to play off the ball a little bit, off the line of scrimmage, off the receiver a little bit, because if the guy's going to run a curl or something, he feels like he can close really well, and then even if he gives up a step or two on a deep route, Ja's really good at that. Again, hitting that second gear, turning upfield, recovering, getting there to.
Took it down the sideline, turned over with my guys, gave the football to a little kid wearing 23.
Exactly. Oh, man. So when you look at the board as a whole, Tim, we'll wrap up right here. Offense heavy on the front side. The defense, to me, it looks like the defensive players kind of take over right around the 10 spot. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, right around the 11 spot, the defensive players start to take over a touch. And that's what's exciting about this draft, because I think we would all agree we need to focus on defense and offensive line, right? Like defense as a whole, and shore up the offensive line a bit there with the run blocking more specifically. So when you look at it from that perspective, you're going to have a minimum of 3 quarterbacks fly off the board in the top 5. You're probably going to have 3 wide receivers fly off the board within the top 10, right? You'll have another couple of quarterbacks probably get reached on as well. By the time the Packers pick, man, the majority, they're going to be right in the wheelhouse for defensive players. That's why we kind of feel like there's no reason to trade up. And now you guys understand after seeing this horizontal board that when we did the exercise that the listener asked us to trade up to 16, when we traded up to 16, Quinyon Mitchell was the pick because he's the best defensive player in the draft according to my board, how it sits. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. You guys, you be the judge of that. I've walked through all the criteria of how I build the horizontal board. I try to take multiple outlets into consideration of, okay, let's put their information in the database. All right, here's the final grade. It's not my personal opinion. I haven't watched these guys and went, I like him better than him. My ego isn't that big. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can break down game tape like scouts. What I can do is break down game tape and show you here's what happened and why it happened. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can identify that guy's hips are fluid. That guy has great lateral explosion. I'm not gonna lie about it. I don't have interest in doing that either, to be honest with you. So you could probably learn that over the course of multiple years of breaking down tape. But the fact that you got people that have already gone before you, like Greg Cosell, like your Ross Tuckers, like your Daniel Jeremiahs, utilize them, man. Utilize them. Make sure you give them credit, but utilize them, because they're the people that I turn to for sure. So there you go. Drew D in the chat. Last one, man. We're way over here. He says, I'm hoping we protect our franchise quarterback. Yeah, I'm not opposed to taking a really good left tackle if one falls right in our lap. I just don't know if it's going to happen with the way the board sits. I feel like there's a good chance that Joe Alt, Fuaga, Latham, all those guys are going to be kind of off the board by the time we pick. Even Fontana probably not going to be there. Yeah, I don't see it. Mims will be there. And Mims, you guys know I wasn't as high on him earlier. When we worked up the board, Mims is actually worthy of the 18th pick. So if he's sitting there, I see the Packers taking him too. But again, he doesn't meet all the threshold criteria. But yeah, so. All right, let's get out of here, Tim. Appreciate you, buddy. This is a lot of fun, man. And we'll definitely be back tonight. We're going to go live tonight, and we're going to take tomorrow night off, because got a big shindig here at the property, and we're going to have a bunch of people here. It's going to be hard for me to break away. Mandy is going to draw up the divorce papers if she catches me slipping away from a party of 60 people at our house trying to do a podcast. She's going to crush me. So you got to pick your battles, ladies and gentlemen. You got to pick your battles. You know what I'm talking about. You especially with the draft coming up too. You can't piss her off right now, because we're going to be live for 7 straight rounds.
1 week to go.
Exactly. And by the way, guys, go over to Ryan's Twitter account at @pack_daddy. You'll see a link there for a Google Docs where you can get yourself entered into a contest to win a couple of gift cards, I think, or at least one gift card to a Brazilian steakhouse. That's, from what I understand, is they've got them all over the place, all over the country. But he basically wants you to fill out a form and give your guess of who the Packers are going to draft, and whoever gets the highest score on that draft card going through and just trying to mock the Packers' entire draft, then you could potentially win that giveaway there. So make sure you check that out. Again, you can follow him at Pack_Daddy, and that's where you can find that Google Doc to fill out your mock draft and get into that contest. So, yeah. That being said, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We appreciate you. We'll see you tonight. For those of you on listening to us on the pod and making us a part of your day, we really appreciate that as well. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. And go, Pack, go.
The power sweep. Actually, it's the lead play in our offense. Yes, a YN or a tight end to open up somewhere between 6 feet and 9 feet. Get an isolation with the linebacker. Tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, to drive down on the first man to his inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.